So Celtic have re-signed a player on loan from Southampton for next season. However, it probably isn't the one that we all wanted. It is, of course, Mohamed Elyounoussi, who has rejoined Neil Lennon's squad for next season after what was a pretty decent first campaign at the club, although it was, of course, cut short by injuries and then the coronavirus. But as I said, most people would have hoped that if we were going to sign one player from Southampton this summer, it was going to be Fraser Forster. Now, don't get me wrong, the signing of Elyounoussi is a really good one. I think both parties know what they're going to get from the deal. Elyounoussi knows what Celtic can provide for him, the kind of challenges he'll come up against in Scotland and also in Europe, hopefully in the Champions League this time as opposed to the Europa League. And also we know what we're going to get from Elyounoussi. We know his strengths, been able to read the game really well, come up with really good goals, and we perhaps know some of his weaknesses as well, aka not being the quickest of players on foot. So a good deal for both parties in that one, but as I say, most Celtic fans would probably have hoped that if we were going to sign one player from Southampton this summer, that it was going to be Fraser Forster. Sadly, that one doesn't look like it's going to happen at all now, which is all come as a bit of a shock to most people probably watching this video. It seems like Celtic were intent on getting Forster, but it had to be a permanent deal. Southampton weren't willing to loan out the player again, which seems strange, seeing as they've done that exact thing with Mohamed Elyounoussi. The talk was that it was going to be $5 million it would cost, upwards of $5 million. We perhaps didn't want to pay that or even didn't have that money at the moment. And added to that, we've learned on Wednesday morning from multiple sources that Forster has reportedly been told that he'll be allowed to fight for his place at St Mary's next season. Obviously a Premier League club, being an former English international and, you know, a proud Englishman, he probably would quite like that opportunity to get back and playing in the Premier League. So we wish Forster all the best, but it doesn't seem like that deal's going to happen for us, and of course that's a massive blow. Now, the extent of how much we miss Forster will undoubtedly depend on who we bring in to replace him. Now, of course, it goes without saying that we'll probably struggle to get someone just as good as Forster, and certainly to have a big an impact as he did last season. When you look at the major games that he played for his last campaign, you obviously think back to the Betfred Cup final against Rangers, the 2 games against Lazio spring out as well, that great save he made in the first game from Daniel Cataldi, and also he was really good in Rome as well. Numerous other big saves he made, obviously a really good clean sheet record, and was one of the main reasons last season why we came out on top in the league. Certainly would have been a little bit more worried about our chances had we persisted with someone like Scott Bain, who of course started the league season. So it goes without saying that we're going to struggle, I think, to get someone as good as Forster. And on top of that, Forster was used to playing with the back four, but even more so the back four. You think of like Julian and Ayer and players like that were used to playing in front of Forster. So it's going to be a blow not just to the club as a whole, but the back four in particular, because we know defences like stability. We saw how much we improved once we got Forster in at the end of the summer window last year and got him settled in. The team really went on a good defensive run. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. There's no way to really sugarcoat that. It's a big blow not getting Forster. I think most people expected him to come back, even if on another season's long loan. So it is a major blow to us, but I guess we just have to get on with it. Now, Hart is, of course, a big name. We all know his past history and how positive that has been on the whole. However, if you take the name away from him and look at the player himself, he's probably not the kind of goalkeeper we should be going for to replace Forster, who's arguably been our best keeper in God knows how long. Now, Joe Hart barely played with Burnley last season. In fact, he finished the season as their number 3. Their number 1 last year was Nick Pope, and, you know, he's a good goalkeeper. But if Hart can't get in the team ahead of someone like that, you would be a little bit worried about his ability to come in and play potential Champions League football for us next season. So, you know, when you look at Joe Hart, obviously we remember his really good spell at Manchester City. At that stage, he was, you know, England number 1, Man City's number 1, won their first ever Premier League title. But since then, since leaving Manchester, he's kind of gone gradually downhill. He had that stint on loan in Torino, then moved permanently to West Ham, and then of course Burnley. So it's a gradual kind of downward trend, and if you think that Celtic could be the next destination for him on that trend, I don't think that really says a lot about us, not to mention the fact that he would be brought in undoubtedly as our number 1. So as I say, if you take the name away from Joe Hart and look at his previous, ability over the last couple of years and the amount of games he's played, then it's not a move that seems to make sense for me. Now, Celtic fans used to argue that Fraser Forster was a much better goalkeeper than Joe Hart. If you go back to the early 2010s when Forster first joined the club and he was on the cusp of England appearances, you'd continually see, under, say, videos on Twitter of Joe Hart making mistakes, you would see Celtic fans replying saying that England's number one should be Fraser Forster. So for me, Forster's always been a better goalkeeper, a better shot stopper. Hart just had the name and the fact that he plays or was playing in the English Premier League. So I don't think that's changed. So it would be a downgrade going from Forster one season to Hart the next. Joe Hart is a year older than Fraser Forster at 33. But, as a goalkeeper, he could argue he's maybe still got, half a dozen years left in his career. Goalkeepers can play till they're almost 40. And we've seen with Celtic goalkeeping coach Stevie Woods how he can reignite careers. We saw it with Craig Gordon a few years ago. Who would have thought that would have happened? And also Fraser Forster himself last year. Woods did a massive job with him. So he would probably relish the opportunity of working with someone like Hart, who obviously has goalkeeping ability. You don't get to where he's been in the game without having that. But he's obviously gone through a sticky period recently. So in all honesty, I'm kind of 50-50 in the Joe Hart stuff. I think he could offer us something, but could we do much better? Yes, I think that as well. But if he signed, I wouldn't be massively against it, but that's more down to Stevie Woods, and I know what Stevie Woods could do with him. Is he good enough to be our number one? That is the question, and my answer would probably be no. Now, Neil Lennon started last season with Scott Bain as his number one, but after a high-profile error in a match we won at Motherwell, and then even more high-profile errors in the second leg of the Cluj debacle in the Champions League, Bain was effectively bombed out. I think he played one game this year, the Clyde Scottish Cup game. So Lennon clearly didn't fancy him last season, and why, when we're going into an even bigger season, should he fancy him now? So I just think it's a non-starter. People may point now to Craig Gordon and ask why he was allowed to leave to go to Hearts when we have such a goalkeeping issue at the moment. But I think Gordon was, in the same boat as Bain. A good number two, yes, but a number one, not for me. If we're looking in Scotland, there's three keepers who kind of sprung out to me and probably be on the lips of a lot of Celtic fans if we are looking to keep it in Scotland. Joe Lewis, the Aberdeen goalkeeper, really good over the last few years. I think he's been at Pittodrie for now 4 or 5 seasons. However, he's contracted until 2024, so we're probably looking at 7 figures to buy him. Is that worth it? Probably not. Trevor Carson, we've spoken about him in the past. We've been linked with him in the past. The Motherwell goalkeeper, but he's Motherwell's second goalkeeper. Didn't play any football virtually the whole of last season. He's had his kind of injury troubles as well. So that's a non-starter for me as well. And the other one, Vaclav Hladky, arguably, other than Forster, the outstanding goalkeeper in the Scottish top flight last season. He's now a free agent after leaving St Mirren. But is he good enough to be our number one in such a big season? Could he handle that pressure? Maybe, I don't know. Goalkeepers tend to be, confident people. So maybe that is one we could go for. But again, it just seems a real downgrade from Forster to Hladky. Could we be looking at someone from down south then? Yep, I think so. I think that's where our Forster replacement will come from. Possibly someone from Nick Hammond's, previous career, someone he's worked with. A few names that I've looked out at Premier League clubs, players that aren't playing or didn't feature much last season. Danny Ward, the former Aberdeen goalkeeper, who's at Leicester City, their number 2. Would he be tempted by a move back north of the border? John Ruddy, who's at Wolves, also played up in Scotland in the past. He's a proven goalkeeper as well, if a little bit older now. And also Michel Vorm, who is basically third choice at Spurs now. That's a kind of goalkeeper that would surely make a lot of sense for us, but would he want to trade in probably a larger wage in London and the simplicity of sitting on the bench to risk it all and play for Celtic? If he's a goalkeeper who wants to play games and fancies winning some medals, then yes, surely. Darren Randolph, the Republic of Ireland goalkeeper, also featured in Little at West Ham. Would he fancy a move north of the border? Another name, Daniel Bachmann. Not many you might have heard of him, but he was at Kilmarnock on loan, I think, season before last, and pretty impressive there. He's a young keeper with a lot of potential. Again, the big question comes, could he be our number one? Can he handle that? I was always impressed when I saw him playing for Kilmarnock. And finally, Artur Boruc. We've got to mention his name anyway, but with the caveat of saying that he's played virtually no football over the last couple of years, and he is now 40 years old, but he is still in the books of Bournemouth, so you never know with the fact Neil Lennon used to play with him.